Hey everyone, welcome to another AI conversation, and I'm joined here by Trisha Nicdao. Welcome, Trisha, to the show.
Hello, good evening. Nice
Okay,
to be here.
so for the two people who probably don't know you, would you, maybe just start with a brief background of yourself and what are you doing now, and then let's pick it up from there. No?
All right. So currently, I'm working as a senior business operations analyst in the Moody. Basically, what it does is I do data analysis and also assist our employees in using Salesforce as a CRM that's we're using. And what I technically I'm a career shifter. So I came from medicine and then I went to ESG,
Mhm.
environmental, social, and governance, also as a data analyst, but not very, we're not going into insights yet. It's more of gathering data and
Mhm.
processing it to see if they pass or fail some standards. And then I kind of rode the data hype in a way. So I was like, oh, why not take this opportunity to go into data analytics? So I took the SQL Labs course.
Right.
Yeah, and then actually I took Sparta first, but then when I was doing it at the same time with my job, it got a bit too much because
The time constraints,
yeah,
Yeah.
the time constraint. So I switched to SQL Labs and I could do it like 2 hours, 3 hours every other day. So there we go. I'm at Lamudi now,
Mm.
and I'm currently learning programming. I'm taking CS50X from Harvard since
Wow.
that's the yeah. I'm still starting, but I wanted to also start at the fundamentals, so to speak. So yeah.
Okay. No, that's great. And I always love talking about shifting careers, no? Like I consider myself a career shifter also. So, can we backtrack a bit? So you said you were getting into medicine. Sabi mo
Yes.
offline you were taking intermed. So, can you run through that? So, why shift out of medicine in the first place, or what was the trigger? And then eventually got you into data, no?
Okay. So initially I wasn't really sure what to take in college because back then there was no senior high. So 16 is kind of very young for me to like choose a career. So I was just
Mm,
checking whatever. So it
mm,
was said there like, oh, do you want to apply for intermed? I was like, oh, I don't know what that is, but sure. And then it's very prestigious, I think, for some Filipinos to say na, oh, my son or daughter is going into medicine. It sounds very cool, right?
mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to help people. So got there and then I discovered I had no passion for it. I mean,
No passion.
no passion.
That's awesome. Yeah, mahirap nga mag-doktor if you're not passionate about it.
Yes,
What?
exactly.
How did you find that? How did you realize that nawala?
It's like we have various classes and back in school. Like there were GEs, there were those in the under liberal arts
Mhm.
and those under the hard sciences. I discovered I was excelling and actually more enthusiastic about minor subjects rather than
Minors.
our actual majors.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's just kind of it's very hard to like slog through medicine if you're not fully determined.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
why yeah, I eventually got the guts to like shift eventually. I took like a few leaves of absences first, but then I eventually got into development studies. If you're
Okay.
familiar with it.
Yeah. So you went into
Okay.
NGOs, tama ba? Not necessarily. More of Sige, can you talk through that? So from medicine, you shifted out into
Yes.
dev studies.
Dev stud, yeah. And then after I shifted, development studies in UP Manila is more of yeah, there's NGOs and also going to communities themselves because there are, for example, farmers cooperatives, like we go to the community itself, we talk with them, like their conditions, how they relate with local governments and private entities. And even
Mm-hmm.
back then, there was already a lot of data collection because we had to collate those, we had to make documentaries, we had to make research papers. So we were technically already using data,
Mm-hmm.
which was interesting because you can't really prove arguments, right?
Without
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 data.
data. Yeah.
Yes,
Who
exactly.
knew? Okay.
I know, like even back then, right? And when we graduated, actually, I was doing my thesis when COVID hit. So I
Okay.
wasn't able to finish the my research. And I was looking for jobs that were catered to work from home
Mm.
eventually. And I discovered ESG analyst, data analyst.
Mhm.
Yeah. Where
What
basically we
is an
just
ESG analyst? Sige
oh
nga.
yeah,
Kasi that's
okay,
a
okay.
fairly
That's
new term ng ESG. Sige nga, can you run us
yeah,
through that?
actually it's one of very few recent words, but environmental, social, and governance. It's kind of CSR. That's more familiar to people, right? In corporate social governance,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that, wherein companies become more transparent. That, for example, they're not polluting certain bodies of water where they're operating, where they're paying carbon tax, or
Mhm.
they pay these certain fines when they pollute something like that, and then they disclose all their information as well. So basically, we just gather data from the reports, and we would classify them as, oh, this one like was very transparent, so they got this grade, something or like that. But
So wait, the ESG has a data component as well, right?
yeah,
Uh,
also
so that's interesting. Could you share a little bit of how data could be used in the ESG space? Because I think this is an area that's unexplored, largely unexplored.
yeah, I also see few job postings about it. It's not that very wide yet, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, ESG, they can, for example, in the side of consumers, they can use ESG, like reports, to determine if the product is sustainable. For example, if it uses recyclable product, recycled materials, for example. And also for other investors, if they see that these companies are using like the right practices, they comply with local laws, yeah, they can check there, kind of like that.
Is that
It's
you
not
think that's a big
like
deal for consumers now? I don't know. Do you technically qualify as a Gen Z? Sorry to ask no. Kasi alam ko sa mga Gen Z, they have they're more, I don't know, conscious. This is general terms, no. Certainly compared to me, are more conscious about yan, mga ganyan, environmental or gender is another big deal for
yeah,
consumers.
diversity and
Yeah,
all that.
diversity. I'm not sure if politics falls under ESG. Maybe a little bit, but more
A
of
little bit.
yeah, whether you promote responsible practices, climate, for
Yeah.
example. So, do you find that as a kind of a mover in markets now? Like how I know how good is your company? You're not an evil company.
It depends on their target market, because if, for example, if your target market is like wine or something, I don't think like Gen Z are very their target market.
Hmm.
But I'm a millennial, so I don't I
Medyo
don't
tail end millennial ka pa, no? So,
yes.
pwede pa.
I
Okay.
kind of look into it. For example, I'm more of into politics, like if they kind of support certain practices or policies.
Hmm.
But for environmental, I also do it, but I don't consciously
Mm-hmm.
go researching. So it would kind of help if there are data published about it that are already compiled. For example, that these companies like um dump trash into this source or that. And for ESG, we there are components like water, um carbon. There's also a social aspect, like do they have accidents in the workplace? We also have that. So it's very general.
Yeah. So I have a question about that. No? Kasi back in the CSR era, I'm gonna generalize. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't necessarily see a lot of data practice. Parang it was more like PR. In fact, in many companies, CSR falls under PR or falls under corporate communication. So it's there to make, parang to dress up your company. Parang for
Yeah.
example, and I'm gonna generalize again, some of the biggest donors to cancer research are the tobacco companies, no? So yun yung CSR
How
nila.
ironic.
Oo. No, intentional yun. Parang, okay, we're selling a sin product, so we might as well be the bigger
Mm.
donor to basically the outcomes of smoking. So CSR yun. Pero ESG feels a little different in my view lang, no? Parang like I encountered ESG briefly during pandemic also. So we did a lot of work in
Mm-hmm.
COVID response, which then branched out into many things, food security, a gender component, then human rights. So, and well, anyway, my impression was even in those sectors, the use of data was relatively new. Parang most of the studies kasi in these places, again, generalizing again, tend to be quite qualitative. And then now you're having more statistics. Kunyari, satellite data can certainly be used for ESG. You can track pollution levels before and after certain event. So, look, for example, you're a mining company, it will be into your best ESG interest to measure yung ano mo, yung carbon footprint mo, yung climate impact mo.
Heavy
Um,
metals.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and for hearing from you na the target market could be moved by that, no? I find that an interesting proposition. Kasi I know people boycott brands, no, that are not
Yes.
sustainable, di ba? And you have these weird, parang si Adidas, no? They have a line of shoes na mahal pa rin, to be honest, pero it's made out of recycled
Oh yeah.
chips, no?
They do market that.
And then they market that as a net zero. The carbon we used to manufacture the shoes is offset by the carbon we saved by getting all these and these really funky calculations. Now I'm not saying they're mali or anything, but it seems like an interesting shift, no, in tone.
Yeah.
So how did it feel to be in that space now? And this right before you got into the data aspect of your career.
Um Actually I was excited about it at first. But then when I started to read reports, I mean, some of them were pretty good. Like they planted trees, they did other things to actually help preserve the environment. But there are other things, like, for example, they would consume resources and they would just pay. So
Mm.
it doesn't really help preserve the environment. And there are also times when, um, for example, they would not find any data about it. Those that are important for their operations, they would just omit it. Like we would say like where's the data for like the ones that are directly related to their operations, it would not be there. So it's not very often, but there are a lot of companies that still do that. So I cannot decisively say that it's not a PR anymore, but I guess it's
So there's parang you can't prove a negative, no? Parang ganun ang
yes.
dating. Yeah.
And yeah, I don't have really data to back up the consumers are affected by environmental. I mean, I see instances like anecdotes or like articles, but there's no percentage of um the effect yet. But it's certainly interesting because I also know some people who would boycott because of like like slave labor or these companies are supporting this or that, so we don't support them.
Can I ask an unfair question? Uh
Game.
Hindi naman controversial. So when you talk ESG, I'm gonna draw a very tenuous link, if ever, no? Talk ESG, you talk about environment, gender, all these social issues.
Mm-hmm.
Inadvertently, it gets to a point where it becomes a subject of woke politics. And again, let's just banter about it. Because people can be woke about many things, like bike
Yeah.
lanes, mga ganyan, or 'di ba?
Anything can be
So
woke these days.
is there I'm not saying you are or you should be or you shouldn't be, but is there a relationship now between these social causes and the woke thing? Because I know the woke thing started with the millennials, if I'm not mistaken, no? And then now it's
Yeah.
inherited by the Gen Zs. No, do you have a view on it? And yeah, random unfair question, but I don't know. Since you worked in that space, I don't know how you would feel about it.
Yeah, it's all right. I actually like talking about this. Actually, the woke culture itself isn't bad. It's just that some of those who are very outspoken about it,
Hmm.
I think, are very uninformed. Like they
Wow.
tend
Okay, I
to,
want to hear
they're not
this.
very,
Sige nga.
because I don't know, if you're going to say something about a policy or uh anything actually, you should like read about it because sometimes
True.
um there are those who just notice something right off the bat and they already post about it without studying or like let's normalize this or that, this is problematic, without studying the context of why people do it,
True.
why is it like this. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it tends to ruin the perception of people again about being woke, which is technically a good thing because you have to be aware of something in order for things to be better, in my opinion.
No, that's
Yeah.
actually a good perspective. And syempre, I'm not gonna blanket indict everyone who's woke as uninformed. Pero yeah, there are a lot. And I think it's because, and then this is super off topic. No? We'll come back to data in a bit. But
Yeah.
I tend to believe it's also, in a way, a feature, not a bug. No, kasi okay, this is how we bring it back. Kasi every time I'm a big student of industrial revolutions, no, and
Mm,
technologies, and therefore I'm a big student of history in with respect to technology. That's why I love
yes.
talking about it. So a lot of my anecdotes are about the 19th century. Photography was not considered art, mga ganyan, or in the 80s, calculators are being banned. So I see these parang recurring tropes. Now, one trope that's not necessarily a trope, seems to be a law already, is whenever you have a technological change, it goes hand in hand with political change. So, first
Yeah.
industrial revolution was steam that powered the colonial era, railroads, steamboats, bumilis yung takeover of Europe to the basically us, no, the third world. And then the second industrial revolution was electricity, telecommunications.
Mm,
Yun naman yung change. The colonies started rebelling, Jose Rizal, all these, their
yeah.
main weapon was information technology, basically the printing press. And then third industrial revolution was the Cold War, post World War II. So
Mm-hmm.
second industrial revolution up to until World War, then Cold War na, internet, telephony, cell phones, mass production, IT. And then ngayon, fourth industrial revolution, AI, robotics, blockchain, all these
Mm-hmm.
Internet of Things, which is basically it looks like the third industrial revolution, except because of AI and data, machines start becoming independent now of humans. You can do predictive analytics, you can do, all sorts of stuff. And then now you have large language models. So ano yung sumabay na politics? This regression, ano yung call it a regression? Parang suddenly naging uso yung populism, right-wing governments,
Actually,
fascism, di ba?
I think it became easier to like spread disinformation, misinformation
So
alongside
for a
the
while
news.
there, people thought, ano ba nangyari dito? This is a bug. And I'm wondering, is it a bug? Baka
I
it's a
think it just comes along with the
it's a
thing, right?
feature, no? And that's
Yeah.
that's crazy kasi now we're saying that this is a product. Sabi mo, it's faster to spread disinformation, and
Yeah.
who stands to benefit from disinformation? Whoever, right?
Those of yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then you have woke politics, and which seems to have come right hand in hand with the
Mm.
third and fourth industrial revolutions. Dati, we just called it plain activism. Ngayon, it's woke.
Yeah, actually.
'Di ba? And I think there's a subtle difference. We're gonna end this digression very soon, no? But I wanted to point this out. So I haven't talked about this with anyone. No? Maybe we should redo this with some political analyst. Pero there's something about woke politics kasi is very reminiscent of Marxist politics. And some people will say, ano ngayon? But ano, parang
Like that's
permit me.
interesting though.
Hindi, kasi if you're familiar with Marxism, it's about oppression, 'di ba? The owners of
Yeah.
capital oppress the workers. And ganun din yung framing of any woke issue. Straight people oppress gay people, white people oppress non-white people.
Yeah, there's always this conflict between two
Oo.
forces.
SUVs oppress bikers, mga ganyan.
Yeah.
So there's a class war everywhere you go. It's a class
Yes.
war, no? And that's a neo-Marxist phenomena. Now I'm wondering, does that go hand in hand with the technology? Kasi nga social media is a good platform to promote all of
It is.
these Marxist ideologies, no? And again, I'm not anti-Marxist, but I'm wondering
Mm.
if you frame everything as a conflict, then there you go, no? It becomes, and then eventually, mind you, it's probably going to be AI versus humans, oppression ulit, automation versus call centers.
Actually, it's kind of happening, right?
I'm
Like
predicting it.
writers,
Yeah,
translators,
yeah, yeah.
it's already happening.
Copywriters getting smashed by AI. Diba? Para it's very seductive eh.
Yes.
No? I don't have a solution to it. I'm just pointing it out. So Uh, uh, I'll move on from that topic soon enough, no? But it just brought it to mind kasi nga you were working in ESG, no? Did you ever get involved in all of that, kahit outside your work? Kasi since you were that was the topic of your work, you probably encounter a lot of people who have an
Mm.
opinion about it, no?
Well, not exactly ESG.
Per
I
se.
was in some organizations that like civic service.
CSO.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yes, CSO. Yeah. Um, we did go to we weren't exactly involved in like environmental, but we talked to people who were
Mm.
involved in that. So you would get their thoughts. We would work with them. We do med missions also before.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of actually there is a lot of conflict. So I guess some of the things that the neo-Marxism people think are they're kind of true in a
Most of
sense,
them don't
but
even call themselves that, no? Some of them get pissed when I say it. Kasi parang it's an indictment na, how dare you? Ako naman, no, I didn't mean it. I'm just saying you're using the same methods the Marxists
yeah,
used. And you have to be ready for the flaw. Kasi the Marxists also had their problems. No? That's why many
yeah.
communist movements struggle up to now. And again, it becomes very
So
political.
yeah, I guess it's because of the power really corrupts. So for example, even if
Correct.
they like go up, they become they
What
want to
they,
control
they
everything. They
they
want to have
become what
power.
they fought before, no? Parang
Yes,
ganun, no?
exactly,
Very
which is pretty
Nietzsche.
sad.
Mm.
Yeah, that's very sad. So sorry, what
Sige,
I kind
naging
of got
political
lost.
debate ang discussion natin. Sige, let's bring it back. So,
Okay,
you
okay.
you were you were working as an ESG analyst, and then you said you started jumping into the data domain, no? So you took Sparta,
Mm.
Esquelab. So can you talk about that? What made that switch, or what made you jump into it?
Actually, it all started with a friend of mine, a batchmate from development studies. We were talking about, oh, it's COVID. We don't want to work in the field. Where do we go? And then we started like just randomly listing, oh, ano, data looks good. Um, VA looks good. We were like, what would carry the most career potential,
Mm-hmm.
basically, and what
Mm-hmm.
is most interesting. So we were looking into it. I said, data looks interesting, so I'm gonna start reading about it, and I did. I was um while I was into ESG, I looked into the like data analytics. I was reading into them. So actually, initially, what started me was just it looked interesting. So interesting and career potential, basically.
Yeah, so when you made the decision to start studying, how did you know what to study? Or do you already know what you wanted to,
Mm.
kumbaga, to
In the
transition?
beginning, yeah, in
Mm.
the beginning, I enrolled in Sparta
Mhm.
because that was the first. I think that was like massive learning platform,
How far did you
and
go? Just out of curiosity.
I don't want to say it was just very early because I got stuck with there is this feature wherein you answer something and then you wait for people to
Yung
agree
mga
with your
peer
answers.
review. That sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
had
right.
difficulty there
Yeah.
because sometimes no one would answer or
Did you
no
go
one would
through
do it.
SP 301? 301 yata ako. The data management,
I think
fundamentals.
so. Yeah, because I saw you there. And
Yeah.
then after that, I was kind of discouraged. So I was reading like where else. And then
Mm.
I found some videos in UPOU.
Yeah. Andun din ako.
Yeah, yes, you were there. So I was very familiar with you already.
Mm.
And then after that, I was still working and I was said, this is so disorganized. I wanted to have a structured learning experience. So I found the SQL Labs. I had a friend who enrolled there.
Mm.
And then so I did go into
So
SQL
how
Labs.
was the SQL Labs experience, to? I mean, it's a boot camp, right? Yun yung ano, no?
Yeah,
Yung
it's very fast paced. I would recommend knowing a bit of what's gonna be there beforehand. But
yeah.
essentially, it was a very good preview of what
Right.
to expect if you want to get a job in data analytics because we had there like data visualization, there's SQL
Mhm.
or SQL, which is very
Mhm.
basic, and then
Mhm.
also Google Data Studio or Looker.
GDS, tama. Looker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it was very good because those are the tools. SQL and Google Data Studio that got me
Mhm.
into Lamudi because that's the platform they were using. So I was able to
Oh,
leverage
were they
that.
using that? Okay. So that was
Yeah.
convenient, no?
Yeah, I know. It is like when I was talking to the manager, oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't know the how to use this or that. Like I was like,
Oo.
yeah, we did some projects. We talked with actual companies, and it really helped.
Yeah, okay. So you had fun with that process, no? In
Yeah,
learning
yeah, it
all
was
of the
fun.
stuff. So, for example, sige, this is a good opportunity to ask you this. If you encountered like mga aspirants, no, or shifters
Mm-hmm.
into data analytics, what are the first three things you would recommend them to study as a subject or as a topic, knowing what you know now? What would be a good first three steps for them?
Hmm. Well, first step I think is to like kind of read about it, like
Mm-hmm.
know the layout of the land, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot. You can start with Excel, you can start with Power BI. Maybe start with what you know first. Like, do
Yeah.
you know Excel already? So focus on that first. Master like data analysis there. Maybe learn some VBA if you want to.
VBA, wow,
And
I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, I still use it in work recently. So
Yeah, it's a very useful tool, no? Talagang
yeah, it's very very convenient
yeah.
if you start to learn. And then start from there. What else or where do you want to go? What are you interested in? So, for example, you wanted to go to real estate or finance or something, and then
Mhm.
you start to learn
Uh-huh.
the yeah, you learn the fundamentals or other programs that you might need. And then it's very important like learn to like befriend people or like know people that are in some industries
Are
and
you
like
part of
don't.
any like communities in data analytics, or did you find any that are useful?
Mm, so far, I'm a member of data engineering. Is that
DEP.
correct?
Oo,
Data,
oo nga.
yeah, DEP, yeah. And also, there's this group in Data Analytics Philippines.
Okay.
And also, the SQL Labs community helped also because I was able to meet up in person with some of my classmates and group mates, which was great.
Oo. Do you find that had you known about analytics earlier, you would have studied that instead in college? Kasi back in the day,
Actually,
parang unknown din siya, di ba?
yes, it was pretty new. It would have helped, but I think it was also fun that I had some kind of domain knowledge in like uh other things before I discovered analytics. Although
Yeah.
it would have been nice, right, to discover the fundamentals earlier. But
Yeah,
I don't
correct.
really regret like knowing about health and medicine or development studies, which was pretty broad. So
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
able to learn that.
Interesting. Kasi nowadays, and I don't know if this kasi you have a job already, so that's good. And I know the glass ceiling is 2 years apparently. So if you're past 2 years of experience, it's relative. You can be relatively mobile in your work.
Mhm.
Pero learning from the refocus experience, and those for those people who don't know what happened there, it was this scammy training company that used me as their advertising,
Yeah.
sneaky. And so anyway, long story short, that thing collapsed, and then 10,000 people are now parang stuck. Kasi many of them are career shifters. I think some of them have found jobs, the lucky ones, pero the vast majority do not. And the issue is, yun na nga, parang because they don't have experience, hindi sila hinahire, which is ironic. Kasi parang, kaya mo nga gusto magtrabaho to get experience,
Yeah.
di ba? So
They
they're
should
stuck
be.
in this weird loop where they just keep going after training, after training, after training, after training. And you can just study SQL, Excel, and Python so much. At some
Yeah.
point,
You need practical experience.
oo, no? In your case, did you ever have that problem? Or was that the value of the SQL Labs? Parang na-bridge niya yung experience gap for
Actually,
you?
that was the purpose of SQL Labs for me because I kind of knew about SQL, and Power BI and
Mm.
other things. But essentially, when I got to my current company, I'm not well versed yet.
Yeah.
So I was able to just use that as a jumping point. So
Okay.
I was able to actually learn on the job as well.
Yeah.
It was kind of sad that people are really stuck in loops of certifications and trainings. And other
What
people
do you
will
say about
also
that?
think,
I mean, people who are hungry for cert,
Ah,
certifications.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it would also be nice if they could have some. If they don't have experience, I frequently read like prepare a portfolio or a compilation of what you learned.
Mm,
I mean, it doesn't equate to actual experience, I think, but it would help if they're like, oh, so what did you learn in this training or what are you certified in? So they can like, oh, please view my website in GitHub or like my website or something.
yeah.
It might help, but I
Okay.
haven't tried like
Have you tried competing in mga, alam mo, yung mga hackathons and whatnot? No? Is that
I
something?
wish. I
Okay.
mean, I don't think I have the skill yet, but eventually maybe.
No, I mean,
Have you?
sometimes there's a value to the competitive,
Actually.
nature. Parang mapipilitan ka na to brush up, no? Like, for example,
I have. Yeah.
we enjoyed the NASA Space Apps Challenge. We were so addicted to it. We did it 3 times, no?
Oh.
And we won 3 times, surprisingly. And then after that, it got really harder na, so we stopped competing. Pero yun parang, kasi yun, under time pressure ka doon. 48 hours yun. Starts on a
Oh.
Friday, you submit on Sunday. No.
Mm.
Although you do have an advanced view of the challenges, mga couple of weeks early. So you can, in theory, you can already start
Mm-mm.
developing a solution. Pero iba pa rin talaga yung you're on the spot time
But
pressure.
yeah,
It forces you to think as a group. Although it's
must
possible
have
to
been
compete by
exciting.
yourself. Yeah,
Mm.
exciting and ano rin, daunting, no? I remember in 2019 was the first time we competed, and we were probably the oldest people in that room, no? Kasi sa Lasal So usually mga
Ah,
college
okay.
students, ganyan. There were a couple of mga actual startups also there. And then there was us, no? And I remember we were apat kami. I was team lead. And then we had a stat person, we have a electrical engineer, and we had a web developer. And
Oh.
the mission was dengue. Wanted to solve dengue, or at least do something with dengue. And the
Mm-hmm.
idea was, if we have satellite data, kasi that's what NASA gives you. And I remember we were clueless about how those things work. So it was a crash course then in remote sensing. So we read up, we found a group on Facebook, and they had this interesting method of inferring where mosquitoes would likely be on the surface given certain, humidity and
Oh wow, that's
ano yun?
intriguing.
Humidity, vegetation, and moisture. Kasi which
Mm.
you can use satellite to measure that
Yeah.
So sabi ko, okay, we know where the mosquitoes could be. And then we had late data from DOH on how many cases. And then sabi ko, if we can correlate the cases with the locations, that would be great. So we found a third data set, which is pag-asa naman, weather data.
Mm.
And sabi ko, sige, if we can predict cases using the weather, and we will know where possibly magsa-spike. Then we go to satellite to look at the surface. So it becomes an end-to-end parang platform where it'll give you an advance notice of where there will be an epidemic. Kasi nga we used Google Trends no to measure search
Mm.
interest. Kasi may ganun flu searches correlate with flu cases. So we thought baka dengue will correlate with dengue, and it did. And then we added weather to fine-tune the prediction. And then we use satellites to determine where the mosquitoes would be. So parang you get an early warning first, you can predict how many cases, and then you can tell the LGU, dyan, sa likod nung simbahan, maraming lamok. And so it now becomes intervention, no? So
Yeah.
we submitted that. Ano yun, 48 hours yun. On the first day, we were encoding kasi alam mo naman tong DOH data, it's PDFs.
Yes.
And wala pang ChatGPT noon, we could have just asked ChatGPT, can you just give us the time series no on the PDF? Wala. So we encoded that, and then
Very
after that,
manual.
statistician does the time series, electrical engineer does the satellite inference, and then si web developer creates a platform. Talagang ano yun, clockwork. And then on the last day, we finished, I think, the whole thing at 4 a.m. on Sunday. No? And
Wow.
we would be cycling through nap time, no? So kung pagod ka na, nap ka muna 2 hours, gisingin kita. Talagang cycle 'yon. Kasi walang uwian You spent
Mm.
the entire 2 days in Lasal, no? And then in the last few hours, it fell on me kasi you have 5 minutes to present everything. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Oo. So
But
that
actually, that's the
means,
time that people would be interested, right? Like,
yeah. So you
attention
have,
span.
sabi ko, you can probably get away with 10 slides, 2 slides per minute. And tinatiming ko sarili ko
Mm-hmm.
na, I'd be standing on one end of the room, PowerPoint clicker, tapos nakatime ako. Blah, 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 blah. I finished my last slide exactly on the dot. No? And then, yun. Kasi you have to convey your point in so many slides lang eh. You cannot be
Yes.
over talking about it. And yeah, that's a problem. No?
To whom did you present the slide?
So
Who was the judge?
there was a panel in the event, and multidisciplinary. We had a director from the OST, we had another guy from the ICT, we had one from PLDT, and then a person from LaSalle. Talagang ganun.
Mm.
So actually, I would say whether you had a working solution or not, a lot depends on how you lay the groundwork on,
Mm.
which might correlate with you. No, sige, enough about me. How did you go about developing the soft skills in being a
Ah,
data analyst? Kasi wala namang mga ganyang bootcamp eh, or meron
yes.
ba?
There's no actual practice about it. Actually, it's more of I was used to dealing with people because I joined a lot of orgs,
Mhm.
and I also joined the are you familiar with the student council things in
Sa
high
UP?
school and
Sa
no, but UP is too it's
too
very
political? Oh yeah, student council. I used to be on the student council
yeah,
back in
yeah,
the day. Yeah.
those are practice and orgs also. I think those harness some of the soft skills that I have. So that when I got into the actual work, I was able to like gauge. Like I had to ask them, right? Like, what do you want to do with this data? Because sometimes they are not sure what they
Mhm.
want to get. So I have to clarify. You have to be essentially I was kind of practicing on the job as well. But I had a good team, so my manager would coach me. Like,
Mhm.
if they ask this, you can answer that. Give yourself some time to investigate. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it just if you have stakeholders, you just have to make sure that they don't feel ignored or that they feel that they are being valued and that you listen to them and you'll get them what they need.
Yeah. I think that's it din eh. Parang there's no algorithm for soft skills. O baka meron, pero it's more of a qualitative one. There's no algorithm for common sense. Kaya nga I feel na ngayon, let's talk about AI a little bit, no?
Mhm.
How do you, wait, sige, before I suggest, how do
Yeah.
you feel about Gen AI as a data analyst? Does it help at all, or do you use it, or not really?
Actually, it's very interesting. Sometimes, I do use it, but not for the actual job itself. For example, I just need some like insights on the job I'm currently doing, or if it's too difficult sometimes, how can I get this information from this information? I mean, I don't, of course, I don't use company data. I just use like in general terms, and
Mm-hmm.
I use it to help me, which is kind of great. I mean, that having that is pretty helpful.
Yeah. Kasi, I don't know if you'll agree, no? I have the impression that the data community, and this is everyone, data scientists,
Mm.
analysts, engineers, is quite lukewarm about Gen AI. You
Yeah,
know,
they're kind of not exactly scared, but they're wary about it because
mm,
some people are kind of fear mongering that, oh, AI will replace us. They won't need data engineers anymore or data analysts anymore, etc. And people are like very defiant. No, they will not replace us instead of using it as a tool to
yeah.
make the job better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's really it, no? Pero, so I'm thinking about that eh. Kasi, like, for example, I've been doing these Gen AI webinars. I don't get any data people at all. Nor am I actually looking for them, to be honest. I get a lot of teachers,
Uh-huh.
freelancers, copywriters. So it's really the broader
Mm-hmm.
audience, no? And I'm beginning to wonder if is it because, there's that fear, or to baka data people think they know prompt engineering already, so they don't think they need to learn it. Uh or they find it as a threat. something eh. Parang there's something na hindi ko magets eh. And
Do you think it could yes, go.
yeah, no,
Sorry.
no. I'm just, what are your ideas? Any thoughts there?
Uh I was thinking about what you said earlier from like revolutions, industrial revolutions, or there's always this resistance to new technology, right? For example, there were those who during the sewing machines, like there were people who like burned those because they protested its use, and I guess that goes also for other forms of technologies. I mean, it
Hmm.
could also be the case for AI. It could be
Yeah.
various reasons as
You
well.
know, this is probably the first time I'm gonna say it publicly, no? And I don't know if I'll end up eating my words, pero I think data science is a third industrial revolution technology.
Mm.
And kasi third industrial revolution is humans doing stuff, no? Even with technology. Kunyari, in a PowerPoint slide, you have to prompt the PowerPoint to move forward, di ba? Pero
Yes.
kung fourth industrial revolution PowerPoint yan, dapat kusa na yan nag-a-adjust as you talk, di ba? The slide
Yeah,
should
it
be listening
knows.
to you. So presentation is still third industrial revolution. I think data analysis and data science, if it's like more I don't know, even predictive analytics, I feel is third industrial revolution. Kasi you still need to get the data, prepare the data, fit the model, make the prediction, do the interpretation. It's very human centric, isn't it? Pero if we talk about, kunyari, I don't know if you've ever done this, no? But if you have GPT-4, and I think most chatbots, kahit libre, you can upload an Excel sheet and it will analyze it for you. Or yung tinatawag nating RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, if you encounter that
Mm-hmm.
term, is a chatbot that leverages your database as a context. So when you do prompting, diba, it works best if you have a context and then you ask a question. So automatic na nangyayari yun. That's fourth industrial revolution data science, not this predictive, prescriptive,
Mm.
descriptive stuff, Project Sparta stuff. I'm not saying it's gonna go, pero it's like admitting
Will
na,
probably evolve.
oo, parang you're now the Neanderthal and there's the Cro-Magnon, ano, yung Homo sapiens. It's a little hard to admit, no? It's a little hard to say. No? But would you grant that to a machine? Kasi it's not naman the humans will disappear. It's more of you give the work you're proud to do to the bot. And then you
Mm-hmm.
now do the higher level stuff. Parang sa ano, sa art. You don't do the basic sketching anymore, pero you're now orchestrating the artwork, no? And that's where AI art differs from traditional art.
Yeah.
That
I
sense.
think what my contention with AI, for example, is that it's stealing. I mean, it's not the AI's fault, it's the human's fault that uses it
Mm.
because they're the ones who's programming them to steal. But having it as a foundation of some of the AI works is kind of not very tasteful, I would
Mhm.
say. So if, for example, you were able to have full use of it, I guess there would need to be some kind of, I don't know, policy or something in order to have it be, what's the word, ethical?
Mm.
Because just having it being used without like carelessly, it's kind of the same with information being used carelessly at present. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I don't know eh. Siyempre, we're all parang speculating right now. But
Yeah, that's true.
I have a feeling one of the hardest things to let go of, especially, because sige, I'll give you an example. No? So, in the entire year, last year, I met many groups of people, industries, and you can neatly divide them into three groups. Those that embrace AI, those that are on the fence,
Mm-hmm.
skeptical but positive, and then those are negative. So the ones who are
Oh.
positive, software developers seem to be okay
Mm-hmm.
with it. Ironically, many graphic designers seem to be fine with it as well. They just see AI as another Photoshop. Okay. Sila pa lang yung so far na meet ko na positive. The and I haven't met everyone. I'm just running down the
Yeah.
list of those I've met. The ones in the middle, finance, mga kauri ko dati. Kasi they see the risks, but they see where it can.
Yeah, like data risks.
Oo. data science and data analytics people are on the fence. No? Parang steady lang, okay, whatever, pero not parang they're not embracing it 100%.
Mm.
There's one more group, I forgot na kung sino. Anyway, so let's go to the negative kasi yung masaya. Copywriters, negative. Cybersecurity, negative.
Ooh.
Doctors are negative. Lawyers are negative.
Yeah,
Government, for the most part, are worried
negative.
about it, actually. Teachers, obviously, in general, with a few exceptions. No?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if I rank them, and again, this is not a scientific anything, no, but maybe I might do a paper on it at some point. Because it just keeps nagging at my ano at the back of my head. Parang the more output oriented you are, the more you're okay with AI. Diba? So if it's all about producing
Mm.
work, becoming productive, go. But then the more you are qualification and credential centric, the less you like AI. No? Parang, oh, I took a PhD in whatever, or hey, I'm a lawyer, or hey, I'm a doctor. Parang there's a lot of gatekeeping in your profession. The more you hate AI. Kasi it
Oh, that's
kind
an
of
interesting thing.
Kasi yun yung trend eh. Mga cyber,
Mm.
teacher, lawyer, medicine, lahat yan credentialist eh.
Yeah,
So, the more, AI just cuts through that. Eh. So imagine your typical lawyer. AI would know more about jurisprudence than you. Kasi memorize na niya yan lahat eh.
yeah.
Database niya. But you're gonna say, hindi ka naman nag-bar eh. You still need a lawyer to rubber stamp it. Same with medicine. There's a lot of medical literature that the chatbot can probably dig up. In fact, medicine is probably one of the best places to implement large language models. Pero, syempre, would you trust a chatbot with a medical diagnosis? No matter how good the how no matter how low the error rate is, kung meron mang ganun. Parang hindi pa rin sure, di ba? And,
Because medicine is like it's still very important, the human connection, I
mm,
would say. But just some of the things like processes in medicine could probably be improved with AI. But the care itself, sometimes when you just talk with the doctor, even if it they didn't solve your problem, there's a placebo effect of having being looked after. But yeah, I guess it's a different thing for actual diagnosis.
yeah, and I think that's also the thing eh. I used to have this quadrant na I'm still refining it, pero the
Mm-hmm.
current state of it is any task you have, you can divide into complexity and uncertainty, no? So if it's a highly complex job, that means you need a lot of data for it. But it's not complex, kahit walang data. Then the uncertainty is the uh, uh the higher the uncertainty, the less predictable the outcomes, or you don't know. So for example, the low uncertainty and low complexity work, you don't need data for it, and you kind of know what's going to happen. You automate that. Kasi you
Yes.
can, di ba? Hindi mo na kailangan pag-isipan masyado. For example, pressing buttons on an elevator. It's my favorite example. There's no data science needed. No, you know what's gonna happen. And yet, we hire people to do that. No, in malls, si ate, tagapindot ng elevator. And again, no disrespect, pero minsan gusto mo na lang singitan eh. Dito ka sa second floor. you know. And some of them try to make their work more interesting than it really is. They switch off the elevator para mas ang dami nilang mga etche Kasi literally, it's just
A
ground
touch.
B1, B2, B3. I mean, where are you gonna go, diba? Automate that. Then you have low complexity, high uncertainty. Usually because you don't have data. And kunyari, negotiating with the client,
Mm-hmm.
customer service, you use humans for that. Pero the point should always be to gather data so that later, if you have enough data, then it can lend itself to some automation already kasi you have behavioral information. So that's pretty simple, no? Pag certain, automation. Pag uncertain, tao. No data. What if they have a lot of data? That's when it gets interesting. So if you have a high complexity, low uncertainty job, so you know the outcome, but you need to analyze a lot of variables. Kunyari, credit scoring sa banko, no?
Mm-hmm.
You need a lot of data, pero most likely it's going to be an approve or a decline. So then the range of outcomes is very, very narrow. that's the best place for analytics. No, you study the statistics, probabilities, pero the human makes the call sa harap. No, and I think most corporate jobs go there. Now, what's interesting is this front where it's highly complex, lots of information, some of it may be unstructured, and it's also highly uncertain. You don't know the outcome. And this is where literature comes in, copywriting, art,
Mm.
you know. Oh, but you can also put strategic planning there, team building, uh, I don't know, human capital management, motivation. Hindi siya, that's why the use of statistics and analytics in HR is still shaky eh. Kasi, well, number one, there are human rights concerns na if you try
Mm.
to reduce people to a digit, that's actually unfair, no? So, I
Reality.
don't know did you ever encounter that notorious bell curve parang method of promoting people? Parang you have to force everyone on a bell curve. So the top performer and the bottom performer. And you have to be at the average or higher to get a bonus. Hindi mo na nadaanan yun. That's
No, not yet,
horrible,
not
no?
yet.
Parang forced ranking siya. And then usually 1 to 5 yan eh. 1, 2, 3, yun yung top of the bell curve. 4, 5, you're in the bottom. If you're a number 5, sipa ka na dapat. Number 4, you're
Oh no.
there but you're not gonna get an increase. It's horrible.
Mm.
Kasi you know why?
Yeah.
It can get political. Kunyari, I'm a manager at meron ako mga inaalaga ang mga favorite disciples.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna force that the other people are on the bottom of the curve para
Yeah.
ma-promote ko sila. It
There's
gets
still a
to
human element there that's very biased.
it gets pretty twisted. Okay. Anyway, sige. So yun. The planning stuff. That's where probably the Gen AI can come in kasi you can kasi there's more ways to analyze things than the quantitative approaches eh. That's something that's hard to admit also as a data person. But then you can have qualitative assessments. Large language models perform well there too. Anyway, the whole point I'm trying to say is I think we haven't seen the full impact pa no, of all of these
Yeah.
models. Parang we're only used to seeing AI as a quantitative tool. And I don't know if you can relate to this. Back in the day, we didn't like neural networks because they seem to overcomplicate something that you could have achieved with a
Oh,
simple
really?
regression. Parang magka-classify ka lang naman eh, but di na logistic regression. And then later, nung naging complex na yung data, images, sound, text, aba, hindi na kaya ng regression yan.
Doon yun na-appreciate
Oh,
yun.
neural network na yan, deep learning na yan. And then if you look under the hood, sometimes people get, parang demystified pag sabi ko, alam nyo, yung neural network is just many, 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 many linear regressions. Each node there is a regression if you open it. So you really didn't do something totally novel. You just restructured it in a certain way, and that's how it's able to calculate these complex relationships na as a whole hindi na siya linear pero
Mm-hmm.
individually may linear component. And by the time I get to my third word in that sentence, people already zone out, no? They didn't get what I was saying, but ganun eh. And then now we're hostage to these large language models because it's really hard to know how they're really predicting the next word. I mean, practically. Parang the framework works, the math works, pero hindi na interpretable yung outcome. There's no regression coefficients to interpret. No? So I mean, that's why it's hard to quantify. Like for example, how do you know the accuracy rate of a large language model?
I don't
'Di ba?
know.
Hindi siya yung root mean squared error or something like that eh. You have to really read what was written and judge qualitatively
Yeah. And what
kung
if you
tama o
didn't
mali.
know that it was wrong, right? You have to like research anyway.
Yeah.
So you know that it's wrong.
So that's an open problem, and people didn't seem to care, no? Parang kasi they judged the original model fit on literally the next word lang. So given I love blank, you, and then how often does you
Mm.
appear in a corpus after I love? Yun yung ano mo. Pero yung mismong understanding like a paragraph written by a model, how do you do that? May iba, they're trying to do some hocus pocus, which is I'll compare what Bard said compared to Perplexity, compared to ChatGPT. Sabi ko, that doesn't really solve anything. You're just asking another model, which could be wrong, to give an
Yeah, they could
opinion
all be
about the
wrong.
first model. Yeah, they could all be wrong. So it's an interesting open-ended problem. And kaya nga yung mga benchmarks, di ba may mga benchmarks yung mga
Yeah.
models. Hindi ako naniniwala dyan sa mga benchmarks na yan. Kasi it's like saying there is always one objective truth. for a given paragraph when you can write about it.
That's kind of also isn't that a problem as well? For example, who set these benchmarks, for
Correct.
example?
Correct. That's an ethics issue, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you discussed that in a previous episode?
No, no. Kaya nga ang ganda nga nito eh, we opened up a lot of worms, which we probably won't close by the end of the hour. We're almost actually at the hour.
Yeah,
Uh, pero it's a good, 'di ba? Parang something to think about. No? And
exactly.
the more, kaya nga contention eh. Sabi ko, data science is probably third industrial revolution because it's very convenient. Parang everything has an answer.
Mm.
'Di ba? Pero what we are seeing with this woke philosophy and all this new stuff, actually there's a movement na matagal na. I don't know if you've heard of postmodernism.
Ah,
This is
yeah, yeah, I have.
yeah. So parang this is a tail end of that eh, where you deconstruct everything. Kasi dati it was very structural,
Yeah, so
everything
and
has
then
an
they
answer.
kind of
But-
reverse that.
And then postmodernism is nothing, everything is relative, the matrix, parang gano'n, no? Parang gano'n yung nangyari bigla with the large language model. You don't know what's accurate, you don't know what's false, 'di ba? Kaya nga ano eh,
Yeah.
predicting let's say fake news, impossible. And then yung mga AI detectors, I think they're a scam. Kasi,
Yeah, I
'di
mean,
ba?
sometimes people really do write these things, and then the AI detector will be like, "Oh,
No,
this
you're a
is from
robot.
yeah,
'Di ba? Hindi
yeah."
kasi it's a
It's
math problem eh.
unfair.
It's a math problem kasi
Yes.
what you're trying to do with classification, for example, is determine whether a certain data point falls within a distribution, 'di ba? So kung medyo
Mm,
outlier ka, yak, you're wrong. Eh by default, itong mga language models, they create data that fits a distribution already, which is yung source text mo. So
mm-mm.
yung structure ng text na pinoproduce niya is identical to the original. So the only thing you can really check is if it's true or false, which is not in the data, no? Parang there's nothing intrinsically true or false by saying this is a dog. Wala eh.
Yeah.
It's a sentence. Pero titingnan mo kung ano yung context, and that sounds like another data set that's outside of this data set. So imposible. Kaya if
Mm.
I'm trying to think, and I could be super simplifying it lang, there's something wrong with the way AI detection is happening. Parang they're looking for structural similarities and differences
I
when there
guess
are none.
very arbitrary. Like people can just write however they
Hmm.
do, right?
What if I really write robotically? Then I'm AI.
Yeah,
Na
pretty
parang labo, diba?
straightforward.
Yeah.
I think another problem is like not really problem, but something to deal with is the economic effect because
Mm.
as you said earlier, that low complexity um tasks could be automated, yes, but it would still present a problem like people without like how do you say this good certifications or good economic backgrounds, they can't really find other jobs. I mean, it's not AI's fault,
What
but
is
it should
good?
be dealt with.
Yan ang
Yeah,
tanong, no?
but it should be dealt with in some way in society to like provide an avenue for these people to have gainful employment.
Yeah. Yeah. And employment is actually also relative na ngayon, di ba? Like for example,
Mm.
before the pandemic, work from home, asa ka pa, di ba? That's a
Yes.
luxury. Ngayon, after the pandemic, asa ka HR if you're gonna let me come to the office.
I know, right? Sometimes when people or the HR or interviewer tell me, "Oh, this is hybrid," oh, I'll be like, "Oh, what's the setup? Like 3 days in the office, 2 days at home." Oh, no, thank you. Currently, I'm full work from home. I'd accept
Blow it off, no?
I accept at most twice a month.
Yeah,
Like sometimes you have that luxury to request na.
yeah. No, I mean these are open problems, I think.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need parang a catalyst to then just deconstruct what you think. So in a way, it's still postmodernism. And
Mm.
then it gets more complicated when you find na kaya pala the work from home thing is being challenged. Do you know why? Out of curiosity?
I have some theories, but some one of them is like real estate, and
Yes.
another is another is like some people really prefer seeing people like grind in the office,
No,
like
no,
they
no.
think
That
it's more
that second
productive.
part, that's the PR. Now, it's
uh,
better, interact, morale,
yeah,
blah,
but
blah, blah.
really it's real estate.
It's the property companies because they're
Yeah.
very influential. So they force everyone to go to the office and create this traffic nightmare if you're living in the NCR, that we have to
Exactly.
undergo 4 hours a day at least on the road.
Yes. Oh my God.
That's a productivity loss, and it's not like, the economy benefits from traffic. 'Di ba? Somebody actually
Mm.
calculated that it's actually net negative. So yung additional revenue that you generate, let's say from gasoline sales, transportation
Yeah,
costs,
it's all wasted.
is more than offset by the lack of activity in the office or at home because you're stuck in the road, and
Yes,
it just doesn't make
exactly.
sense, no? Okay, we could talk forever, but
Yeah,
let's
we
save time for
use the
the
time.
next chat, no. So maybe let's go back to your roots, no. So you're now in data analysis.
Mhm.
You came from ESG, you came from medicine. What's in store for you? Anything you're looking forward to for your career? And then secondly, given what you've gone through, maybe some words of advice for people who might who might resemble your journey early on. What would you give? What advice would you give them?
Okay. So what I look forward to is kind of learning the fundamental. Actually, I'm kind of finding similarities to what you did. Like you were learning on the job, and then you learned fundamentals after. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to finish the CS50 course, and
Mhm.
then like gain actual theoretical, which I could pivot into use eventually. I'm not sure yet if I wanted to into data science, data engineering, or eventually into something related to AI as well, although that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically that's I wanted to learn programming in the mid short midterm goal. And as for advice, uh it's basically just go for it if an opportunity presents itself. For example, like this talk or a job offering that even though you might think that you're totally unqualified for, but have some skills, just go for it. That's basically it. Don't be afraid to take some risks, but also be prepared. Like you can't go into something that you don't have any preparation. So as much as possible, prepare for it and just go. Yeah.
No, it's very encouraging. And yeah, I've been talking to a lot of people similar age bracket as yourself. I have nothing but awe and respect. Kasi compared to when it was my era, and I sound so old when I
Mhm.
say that, nung panahon ko,
I say that
it
also nowadays.
it was really hard. As in, number one, walang internet.
Mm.
Literally. Number two, it really felt like you were studying forbidden knowledge kasi you had to buy these expensive books just to learn. And then programming pa, hard to penetrate, no? SQL, obviously, you can probably pick that up and self-study that. Pero if you want to learn like hardcore functional programming,
Mm.
object-oriented programming, talagang hirap.
Be
Unless you went
challenging.
through ComSci. And even the people who went through ComSci, they all like I didn't go to ComSci. I went through
Mhm.
business, no. Parang I don't know if it's easier for business profiles to learn a little programming and then become productive versus the hardcore ComSci types to learn business.
Mm.
'Di ba?
Pros and cons.
'Di ba? And
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle is the data analyst who blends both, no? So you come at it from different angles. The statistics and math part, arguably, I think is easier to learn if you're coming from business. Maybe not the hardcore, like deep, like there's also like hardcore deep math who would know differential calculations, integral calculations by heart. I feel that they struggle the most to understand the business side, no? Yung mga
Mm.
comsci kasi
Very
parang
technical.
it's more of you're used to, and again, I'm probably gonna eat my words, no? Maraming mga ganyan eh, mga physics majors, math majors. So in a way, you're preconditioned to think about the universe in a very structured way. It follows a
Mm.
distribution, di ba?
Yeah. People aren't so predictable.
Economics is an example of that, trying to fit everyone into these rational curves, and then only to find out they're not predictable
It's
individually.
chaos.
As a
Yeah.
whole pala, predictable sila, but not quite.
Mm.
And that's why AI is the culmination of that confusion, no? Interesting, no? Pero yeah, I'm happy na at least now there are people who study data science na talaga, no? Even the Sparta and the bachelor's, eskwelabs. Kasi it really is a multidisciplinary field.
Yeah, I
And
guess
then when
everything
you
from
say,
everywhere.
yeah, diba? And then when you hear about it, just when it's about to take off, biglang pasok naman sa AI, diba? Which could
Yeah.
potentially render all of that pointless. If you parang like for me, what is data science in the fourth industrial revolution is me talking to an Excel sheet, diba? No need to do pivot, VLOOKUP, all that stuff, which is fun to
Yeah.
do. You
Yeah.
literally talk to your time series, no? 'Di ba? And it tells you. Ganun yung totoong for IR. Kaya nga, I don't know, maybe I'm being too idealistic, no? Pero that's the equivalent of what's happening sa LLM. You talk to a PDF file, 'di ba?
Mhm.
You talk to a prompt. Yung for IR data is you talk to data. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe it's probably closer than we think. Pero yun na nga, I don't know if people will necessarily agree. Sige.
It depends
Anyway,
on many things. Yeah.
I want to thank you, Trisha, for coming to our
Thank you
to
also,
our
Doc.
get together, and I hope to have you again. Kasi
Yeah, it was nice talking like this.
dami na open worms eh. So I'll take note of that. And yeah, and all the best in your current role. And yeah, and
Thank you very much.
yeah, maybe we'll do a podcast every time you make a major change, no? Para you can
Yeah,
broadcast it
I'll
to the world.
update.
Oh,
Yeah.
parang keeping track of Trisha, no? Maybe that's a show that we can do.
Catching up.
Oo nga eh. Alright, sige. Talk to you
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.